Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shri KDU International Primary live preview. My name's Katie Tomlinson. I'm the head teacher at Shri KDU International Primary. We call Shri KDU International Primary SKIPS for short, and throughout the preview this morning I'll be referring to our school as SKIPS. I feel that my job over the next 40 minutes or so is to do three things. I think that firstly, I need to tell you a little bit about myself. If you decide that you're going to send your child here, I feel that you need to have the confidence in the person that's leading the school. And I think that you have to check that that person has the values and priorities that are aligned with your own as a parent. Secondly, I would like to give you information about our school, the curriculum, our teaching, how we assess learning. And thirdly, I want you to leave the preview feeling that you know what makes SKIPS special, unique and different. Different from a Chinese school, different from a Malaysian school, and more importantly, different to other international primary schools. Because the fact that you've logged into the preview this morning tells me that you're interested in sending your child to an international school, of which there are many to choose from. And I'd like to be able to help you make an informed decision about whether SKIPS is the correct school for your child moving forward. So let's start by sharing a little bit of information about myself. I come from a small village in the north of England. This is an aerial view of my village, and if I was to walk down the street in this village, I would be able to knock on the doors of my auntie, the girls I went to school with, my brother's best friend, my cousins. I knew from the age of 5 that I wanted to be a teacher, and I've been qualified for 24 years this year, and I still think that I've got the best job in the world. I trained for 4 years in the UK before I secured my first position in a village school as a year 4 teacher, and from there I moved into a larger school where I was a year 6 teacher. After 11 years as a classroom teacher, I became the deputy head of a school, and after that moved into headship. I first became a head teacher in 2008, and I've been at Shri KDU since 2017, and Shri KDU is my 4th headship. Now, you've probably noticed that the pictures in my slide have changed as time has gone on in my career. And I think the shift in my thinking is really important. The pictures I showed you at first were those of buildings, but as I've evolved as a school leader, they became pictures of children and people. I think the shift in thinking is important to you as parents, because one of the things that I've known over the last 24 years, and I've grown to know for sure, is that schools are not about buildings. They're about people, they're about communities, and they're about school families. And that's exactly what SKIPS offers students and their families. When I first decided to look for an international position, I had a long list of criteria to think about when I was deciding where I wanted to apply for a head teacher's position. The school had to be somewhere where the principle of the school's values aligned with my own. My family had to be able to become part of the school community. I was looking for a school with a heart, and I think I found it here at Shri KDU International. Let me move on to talking to you a little bit about some of the finer details and giving you some information about our philosophy and how we actualise teaching and learning in SKIPS. We teach the national curriculum of England, but that is adapted to work for our Malaysian and international context. Adapting the curriculum means that we've carefully considered what to teach and the weight it should have in the timetabled curriculum. For instance, we've made the decision to focus on units of history learning, which we feel are most appropriate for our context, choosing to introduce a unit on the Shang Dynasty, for instance, in year 5. Mandarin teaching is really important for us, and therefore we've ensured that the Mandarin provision within SKIPS is of an exceptionally high quality, with all Mandarin teachers having specialised qualifications and 3 lessons every week allocated within the timetable. We've got Bahasa teaching for all children weekly, and we've also got Islamic studies time within the curriculum for Muslim children. Currently, we have specialist teachers delivering music, PE, Mandarin, Bahasa, and Islamic studies. TREE KDU is what I would refer to as a through school and a true through school from year 1 through to IB. Some of our specialist teachers work across key stages, and this is particularly helpful when children move up from key stage 3 into key stage 3 and the secondary school. Transition is so much easier for them as they see familiar faces, and they may even have some of the same teachers for subjects. It's also beneficial in helping our children and staff to understand that learning is a journey, not a key stage or a year group. Within the curriculum, we teach in a themed way. This helps the children to understand how learning concepts can be linked, and it also makes teaching and learning more cohesive. So for instance, this picture here can show you how a DT unit is linked with art and science, and we designed biomes for our science theme week. This picture here shows you how the story of the 3 little pigs was used to teach shapes, with the children making houses from the shapes they had learned in maths. However, we understand that there are some aspects of learning that are not covered within the National Curriculum of England, and we ensure the fullness of a curriculum through an enriched provision. That is our ECAs, our CCAs and CCLs. So to talk to you about those a little bit further, ECAs take place outside of the timetabled curriculum. This could be before school, at lunchtime or after school. The staff offer ECAs on a voluntary basis and they're free of charge to parents. Some of the free ECAs offered currently are dance, eco-art, football and T-ball. In addition to the complementary ECAs, there's also an extensive program of CCAs that parents can select from. These are run by outsourced providers and they're paid for separately by the parents. Some of the CCAs currently that we offer are Chinese drums, Chinese yo-yo, karate, basketball and robotics. CCLs take place within the school day and they're for 2 hours each Friday. Staff offer these activities based on their passions, their expertise and their specialisms. The structure of CCLs is planned so that students are assigned to one active and one artistic CCL each week, and they rotate through the CCL groups, moving to different activities every 6 weeks. The CCL program in SCIPS is built around the principles of expose, experience and explore. We expose the children to a variety of activities, some of which they might not otherwise have an opportunity to explore in their school or home life, and this widens their experiences and encourages them to try new things. We dictate and we select which CCLs they do. This is different to secondary school where they get a choice. We feel it's really important at a primary age level that children are given the opportunity to experience things that they wouldn't necessarily choose to do. Many of my active boys who would always choose sports to do as their CCLs have really benefited from being forced to take part in things like yoga and eco-art, which calms them and teaches them different skills. Let me talk to you a little bit about the nitty-gritty of provision in SCIPS. People often ask me about these types of things. Class size in SCIPS is capped at 24. The only reason that we would exceed the number of 24 is if we were to recruit an expatriate member of staff who had a child who needed to be admitted into SCIPS. And on that occasion, we would allow the class size to rise to 25 or 26. This has only happened once in the last 3 or 4 years, and it's a rarity. So most of our classes are below 24. We have classroom assistants who are all local members of staff. We have 1 per class for the year 1 and the year 2 classes, and 1 per year group for the year 3, 4, 5, 6 classes, which is Key Stage 2. Our classroom assistants are really well trained. We've invested in them significantly. Some of them were previously teachers in the national system, and others are qualified to master's degree level. The classroom assistants in Key Stage 2, that's year 3, 4, 5 and 6, are often deployed according to need following progress meetings. I have progress meetings each term with class teachers where we have professional conversations about the learning happening in each class and about the progress and attainment of students. Following that is when we deploy the classroom assistants according to where they are needed the most. Everything we teach and learn about in SCIPS is underpinned by our learning-powered approach. The learning-powered approach is a structured way of teaching and organising the growth mindset to children. People who display a growth mindset are believers that there's very little in life you cannot achieve. If you work hard, you're determined, and you have focus. The learning-powered approach helps children to learn. It helps them to persevere when learning becomes tough. Enjoy the struggle of a challenge. It helps children to understand that making mistakes can be a good thing and that it takes time to practice a particular skill if it's going to pay off over time. It helps children to develop their curiosity, be social, and to reflect on their learning and behaviours. Children who join SCIPS in year 1, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but they'll be going into the world of employment in the 2030s. Who knows what jobs they'll be going into? And what we strive to do in SCIPS is develop lifelong skills that will build character so that when they leave school, they'll be able to rise to any challenge that life may throw at them. In our Monday assemblies each week, I help the children to understand which learning power we're focusing on and how this will actually look like in their behaviours and their learning. Some of our most recent assemblies have been about the positive power of failure and about being thoughtful and listening with your heart. One of the things I get asked a lot about by prospective parents is assessment, and in particular, checkpoints in the forms of tests and exams. There is only one formal test within SCIPS, and that is the test that we do in year 6 in term 3 each year. The staff might do mini quizzes or mini assessments within their classes, for instance, at the end of a unit of work. But other than that year 6 test, there's no other formalised testing taking place. Now, I know for some parents it might be difficult to understand how we judge progress, how we get knowledge about attainment. And parents will sometimes ask me, but how do you know how well the children are doing? How do you know how much progress they've made and what standard they've reached? And the answer to all of this is assessment for learning. This is the assessment that takes place in a lesson, at the point of learning. If I go into any SCIPS classroom during a lesson, I would see teachers actively engaged with children. Sometimes they might be working with an individual child. Sometimes they would be working with groups. It would be very normal for me to see that children within the classroom are working on slightly different things according to their ability and the place at which they are at in their own learning journey. The teachers in SCIPS know the children in their classes exceptionally well and are able to match the work very closely to their individual needs. Teaching in SCIPS will never be a one-size-fits-all. We record all the information we learn about children from their lessons into a spreadsheet, and this tells the teachers which skills the children have achieved and mastered. We report to parents in terms of where your child is according to their age-related expectation. But our real focus in SCIPS is always on progress and how your child is continuing to move forward at their own pace in their own learning journey. We have 3 PTCs a year, 1 each term. The first of these is teacher-led, and the second and third are student-led. And this is completely in line with our learning-powered approach, where we want students to take ownership of their learning, where we feel that they should be in tune with what they've done well and where they need to go next. Parents are often really impressed with how children can articulate how they've made progress, and that's because they're taught to think about it as time goes on, as well as just preparing for the PTCs. If after the preview today you decide you'd like for your child to come into SCIPS, they would take an admission test or interview. If they were applying for a place in years 4, 5 or 6, they would take the CAT 4 test. This is nothing that they can revise for, it's nothing that they need to prepare for, and it's certainly nothing they should be worried about. The test is done in 4 different parts, and it's a little bit like an IQ test and gives us a general understanding of the child's innate potential ability. If they're in years 1, 2 and 3, they don't do the test. Instead, they have an interview with myself or one of my assistant head teachers if I'm not available. Now, this is not an interview in the sense of what you or I might think of as an interview. And it's very low key and it's very child friendly. It begins with me just chatting with the child about their interests and putting them at ease so that we can generate a relationship to build on so that they can do the best that they can do within the interview situation. And then I move on to looking at how well they read. For year 1 and 2 particularly, I look at their phonics knowledge, and I also look at their maths ability. I'm looking at core maths and English skills for that. Children who take the CAT 4 test but don't perform particularly well will not be instantly rejected. When the scores fall below an average score, I always request to have an interview with that child, because I'm aware that testing doesn't always bring out the best in children, and we want everybody to have the best opportunity they can at showing what they can do. So why would you choose SCIPS or KDU International for your child? We have a learning community that I feel is really unique. It is a family. It is a place where everybody knows your child, where everybody knows you and your family. We're small. We've only got 12 classes, and at the moment there's approximately 240 students. And what that means is that as a head teacher, I can get to know everyone. I'm often in the SCIPS corridors in the mornings, and I get to greet people as they're bringing their child to school. I can go into any class and tell you who sleeps with the teddy bear, who wants to be an astronaut, whose mum's just had a baby and might be feeling a little bit insecure. And I think that that's fairly unique for a head teacher to be able to do that. And I think it's because of our size that I'm able to. I think here at KDU International, you get the best of both worlds. You get an international education, you get UK trained teachers, you get a British curriculum, and you get a school with a Malaysian heart. And I know when I was looking for a school for my kids, this was really important. I wasn't going to move my children halfway across the world to try and have a replica of a UK school. That's not what I wanted. I was looking for a school with a heart, a Malaysian heart, and this is what I think we're offering. I think you get a focus on character formation as well as academic achievement. Of course, academic achievement is important. Of course, you want your children to get the best grades, the best exam outcomes. I realise that. But more importantly, I think if you're sending your children to SCIPS, I think that you have a priority in making them good people and developing their character so that they can deal with all of life's challenges when they become an adult. I think here at KDU International, you get a true whole school experience. I think that's probably to do with our size, because I know that many international schools go through all the way from year 1 to year 13. But here it really is a true whole school experience from year 1 through to IB. We do a lot of crossover work, we have a lot of whole school events, and I know that when children move from Key Stage 2 from SCIPS at year 6 into year 7, the transition is exceptionally smooth. The children don't feel like they're starting a whole new school. They recognise that they're familiar with all of the building, all of the facilities. They know some of the year 7 and 8 students that have moved up into year 8 and 9. They know some of the staff. They feel really familiar and at home. I think what you've got here as an international school is some quality assurance as well. So Shri KDU is a member of the FABISIA network, which is the Federation of British International Schools in Asia, which means that we've had to go through some membership and quality checks to be part of that. It opens up for our students lots of opportunities to become involved with global events across Asia particularly, and also enables for our staff to do training with these schools and share expertise. We're also an active member of the AIMS network, which is the Association of International Malaysian Schools. We play key roles within that network. And we have also been accredited with ISQM Gold. Shri KDU International was the first international school to get the gold accreditation in Malaysia, which is quite some achievement. These are some pictures here that illustrate our community spirit with some of our parents and some of our Patui Soup Kitchen charity work. But the last picture here is a picture of my own children. When I was choosing a school for my own children, when I was in the UK at that time, it was really difficult. And you would have thought that being an educator, it would have been very easy for me. And it wasn't. It surprised me how difficult it was. Because schools are all unique. They're doing things in their own different ways. And children are all unique as well. And you need to find a school that fits you and your children as much as anything else. I love this picture of my children because they're quite young here and they're smiling and they're actually touching each other, and now they're teenagers, they're 14 and 16, and they're very different. They're rather grumpy all of the time, which I hope isn't a reflection of my own parenting. I think it's just more of the teenage years. But what I wanted when I chose a school for my children was a school that could bring the best out of them, a school that could treat them as individuals, a school where they would be happy beyond anything else, and a school that would quite simply be able to make them the best version of themselves that was possible. And I really honestly do think that that's what we offer here at Shri KDU International. Now is the time where I would normally let you leave the primary hall and go and meet some of my lovely students, and they would take you round their classrooms and talk to you about how proud they were of all of their achievements and their buildings and their work that they had done. But that's not possible today. So I've got the next thing, the next best thing, which is a recording of Gokul and Nisha, two of our most wonderful students touring the school digitally for you.
Welcome to Shri KDU International Primary School. Let's go for a tour.
In the mezzanine, we have our assemblies,
CCL activities,
and some special events like orientation days,
and even talks for our parents. These are our classrooms and lockers.
Displays in our classroom reflect our learning themes. This is the basketball court where we can play basketball with our friends.
It's among one of the sports facilities we use.
It's time for our morning break.
Look, Nisha, the KS1 students are having their break and play at the play area. There are many books we can read and borrow from the library.
I usually come here to read some books while I wait for my parents to pick me up.
This is the primary school hall where we have our annual production.
We also come here for sports activities.
This is the Mandarin room.
This is where we learn the language and some cultural activities. Bahasa Malaysia is another language that we learn in our school.
We come to the BM room for lessons and activities.
This is the swimming pool where we have our weekly swimming lessons and our annual swimming gala.
Thanks for joining us.
We hope to see you next time.
Bye!
Hi Hilary, your question is, do students use iPads during the school lesson? We have 2 carts of iPads that we use in SCIPS, and they are bookable by any of the teachers at any of the time. They do use iPads. The teachers in the SCIPS classroom have an iPad of their own that they can use at any point. But if they wanted it something for students to do as a whole class or one between 2, we've got that facility within within our school. We try to make sure that we're not using ICT for using ICT's sake. We use ICT when we feel that it will improve the learning, and the teachers are all very, very well trained in using the iPads and apps that we feel will enhance students. We're aware that we're in a very digitally motivated age. However, we're also aware of the need for balance. I myself have done a lot of research about the effect of technology on young brains, and I'm very keen not to introduce ICT and screen time into our curriculum that is not enhancing and does not work. So the answer is yes, we do, but no, we don't use it all the time. We use it as and when it improves learning. So I hope that answers your question. Hi Melvin, we have 24 students as a cap for our class sizes. 26 would be our absolute maximum, but 24 is our standard cap. As I explained within the preview, the only reason that we would go over 24 is if we had recruited a member of staff who was coming from overseas and bringing children of primary age and needed a place in SCIPS. And on those occasions, we would allow the class size to rise to 25 or 26, with 26 being an absolute minimum. However, what I can say is while we've got that provision in place, we haven't actually ever had to use it except for once over the last 3 years. So most of our classes remain capped at 24. Hilary, you're asking me what the difference is between the Cambridge and the National England curriculum. They're different curriculums, but the objectives laid out in the Cambridge curriculum are worked through in a different way that we would work through them. So many international schools will use a Cambridge curriculum, Cambridge objectives to work through. It's more organised in terms of the expectations for what will be done at each year group. Whereas with using our curriculum, we decide who within each key stage what will be taught within each class. So there's more flexibility within the national curriculum and the way that we teach, but they're following very similar objectives. It's more prescribed in the Cambridge curriculum. So your question is about the school and facilities for SEN students. My answer to this isn't a straightforward one. At the moment in SCIPS, what we don't have is SEN provision where a student would require one-to-one support in the classroom or one-to-one support to be able to make progress. And that means if they need a shadow teacher, if they need a teacher aide to be able to access the curriculum, then this probably isn't the right school for them. When I do the interviews or look at the CAP 4 test, that's what I'm looking for really, because I know that it wouldn't be right to accept a student who had some special learning needs that we wouldn't be able to deal with. I don't have provision for one-to-one. However, having said all of that, we do have special needs children in our school who have some learning difficulties. Their learning difficulties are not significant enough to mean that they have to have a one-to-one support or a one-to-one shadow aid, and therefore they function very well. They just function within our curriculum that is differentiated within our lessons, and they generally do exceptionally well at their own level. Hi Ms. Ong, you're asking me about how much homework we get. We call it home learning, we don't call it homework. And how much they get if they're in year 1, 2 and 3 and you're both full-time working parents. I get this, I totally get this. I was a homework hater when I was a parent and my children were young, because I felt like I had to do it for them and they couldn't do much on their own. So So with this in mind, what we've tried to do is base our home learning on project work. And what that means is students can work on it as intensively as they want. So for instance, one of the 3 topics that I can think of at the top of my head that they were doing a home learning project for was they had to create something, and it really was a something, to do with their Roman topic. And so some of the children simply wrote a fact file, which might have taken them maybe an hour. Some they built great big Parthenons, and they took weeks to do. So usually the home learning project is stretched over a number of weeks. Some of them painted pictures, some of them made a Roman shield. One of the students made their own game. It was a bit like a game of Monopoly based on then Roman knowledge. And so really what we've tried to do is make sure that we can be flexible. Because one thing I've learned over the last 12 years as a head teacher is that home learning is always a bit of a contentious subject for parents, because some parents want to do quite a lot and some parents don't really want to do very much because they're working and they want their time with their children to be focused on other things. So with the home learning projects, that can be as much or as little as the parents want that to be. With home learning on a weekly basis, we set that mainly focused on a core skills. So for instance, again, in lower key stage 2, in year 3 and 4, there will be a big focus on learning times tables, learning spellings. In year 1 and 2, there's a big focus on their phonics work. And that's really to enhance and help them make accelerated progress. But we try to make sure that you as parents aren't overwhelmed or overburdened. We don't want to get work that's done at home submitted from parents. We're not schooling parents, we're schooling children. So we understand that, and that's really important. I hope that settles your mind a little bit. You're asking, is there any boarding service? There isn't any boarding service here at Skips. We don't have that facility at the moment. Hi Amanda, it says on the website that foundation subjects are taught through thematic learning. Can you explain what thematic learning is? Yes, I can explain what thematic learning is. So the theme lessons that we have each week encompass our subjects of DT, art, history and geography. And within the theme, the teachers would decide which would be the lead subject. So for instance, they might decide that it's going to be rivers and it's going to be a geography-led subject, but within that, they will also do artwork that is connected with rivers. They might look at DT work that is connected with rivers, and they might also look at some history work about how things have changed over time. So there's always a lead subject. Our English work is linked in with the work about rivers, so with the theme. So to give you an example for our year 6 topics, they have been learning about the World War, and so that's a history themed unit. But within that, they have done lots of work about geography, because they've learned where the countries are and which continents the countries that took place in the war were. They've also been able to pinpoint things on maps concerned with that. They've also done quite a lot of artwork about the world bombings and those kinds of things. They've also been on trips that are connected with this to the museums in Malaysia and learned about how Malaysia was involved in the war. So thematic learning really is a way of grouping objectives and subjects together so that the learning is more meaningful for students. What we might do with a thematic learning approach is we might read a book that is connected with the theme as we lead up to it, so that the children enter the theme of learning about the subject before they even begin. So, for instance, when we were leading up to the subject of the World War, we were reading in advance of that some of the work from Tom's in a Garden, which is set in that time, just to help them gain some understanding. Just scrolling through my questions now. This is a really good question. Do you have any programs to help new students adapt to school? Last year we worked on this really hard because we get a lot of new students coming all through the school. We do a great job of induction, particularly at year 1, so let me start with that. So any students that are enrolled for year 1 in September, we would contact the parents in June and July and start the induction process. Then we have an induction meeting where the year 1 teacher will lay out things that they would like their parents to concentrate on at home to be able to help them when they start with school. They get a little bit of a project to work on over July and August to bring with them on their first day. For students who come from year 2 to 6, much later than the normal time, we have a buddy system, and we have laid out in one of our documents all of the things that we can do to help students who join us then. One of the documents tells the teachers exactly what they should do. So one of the things that I always like is to greet the children, for a member of staff to greet the children on their first day. And they come in slightly earlier, we greet them because that shows them that we were expecting them. And I always think that puts them at ease. We've already got them ready for them, their locker, and we assign them a buddy. And the buddy then is responsible for making sure they know where to go to the toilet, all those things that if you're actually only 7 really worry you, where the cafeteria is. We make sure then that they feel comfortable. We would do a check-in in their first couple of weeks with the parents to make sure that they've settled well. And as I've said, we're a really small school, and one of the benefits is that if we've got new students, I know about it. And so during their first 3 or 4 weeks, I would pop into classrooms, find out how they're doing, make sure that I learn their name and know something about them that makes them feel very comfortable. And we find that even students who don't join us until year 6 end up feeling that it's a place that they can call home very, very soon. I've got a question here about fee structure. I think that it's best if you contact the marketing department. They will get back to you with an answer about this. Changes made in school with regards to hygiene in view of COVID-19. Yes. Who knew we'd be living in a world with COVID-19? If you'd said 6 months ago that I would be doing an online preview on Facebook, yeah, I probably wouldn't have even known how to do that 6 months ago. So hygiene, so to give you some indication of how safe things are this morning, bearing in mind that I'm the primary head teacher and the security know exactly who I am, I had to go to the security guards and check that my name had been agreed for admittance. I had to sign a form to talk about where I'd been in travel since the MCO had been issued. I then had my temperature taken, had it actually taken twice, once on entry and then once later in the day as I passed a security guard. We're wearing masks and gloves at the moment, so that, you know, that is really important to us. We're going to manage social distancing on return as much as we're able, and we're also in meetings about how when we return to school we can protect our children from infection and spread as much as possible. I've already written to my parents and discussed with my parents about how we're going to manage the return to school. And we're going to manage the return in skips in 3 ways. We're going to manage it from a curriculum point of view, because we realise that we're going to have to do some curriculum adaptations based on units of learning that may not have been able to be covered while we were learning virtually online. So for instance, some of our practical art and science themes. So we're looking at curriculum adaptations for that. We're also looking at the emotional return, because for some of our students, they've really missed school. And a return to school they will be so excited about when it happens. And what we need to prepare them for is the fact that actually school might be a little bit different than what they remember. So when they remember that we all got together and we had our weekly assemblies, which they really enjoyed, that actually we won't be doing those in exactly the same way. So we need to prepare them emotionally for the return. Some of our children, you know, who've been learning at home, they will have forgotten what, you know, as you do if you're 5, 6 or 7, you forget the rules and how you So we're preparing emotionally and socially. And then thirdly, we're looking at hygiene and health and safety factors. And largely that's driven by the operational and facilities team. And one of the things about working in a company like KDU, who are well established, they've got a well established facilities and operational team who are looking at all of the hygiene factors and making sure that it's safe for return. So thank you for that question. Hi Nicholas, how many expatriate teachers does your school have? So in the international primary, all of my classroom teachers are expatriate. They're all UK trained and have at least 3 years teaching experience. That's one of our visa requirements. So that's in the international primary. There are 12 classes. So I've got 12 international teachers, and I've also got out of class 2 additional assistant head teachers to help me run the school and myself. So that's 15 international expatriate teachers, UK trained in SCIPS. We have local teachers for our Mandarin and Bahasa. We also have a local teacher who runs our music provision. Some of our swim coaches are Malaysian and some of our PE teachers are, but we also have expatriate members of staff in those departments as well. So this question is about pick-up time after school. A working parent, so they like to know what time is pick-up for kids after school. I'm working, so I'd like to know what kind of activities are. So if I talk about pick-ups first, pick-up time for year 1 is at 3 p.m. Pick-up time for year 2 to 6 is 4 p.m. And that's Monday to Thursday. Everybody on a Friday, pick-up time is 12:15. In terms of what happens after school, for year 1 students, we run activities from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. for them towards the latter end of term 1 and into term 2. What we feel when year 1 students come at first, and experience have shown us, and parents have also agreed with this, is that they're often very tired. They start school at 8:20, and then by the time they get to 3 p.m. they're very, very tired. So when they first join us in year 1, there aren't any activities for year 1, but then towards the end of term 1 we begin to introduce activities from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. So then they would be picked up at 4 p.m. For children who are in year 2 to year 6, there are activities running every day after school for them to choose from. There's over 40 activities that are ECA or CCA combined for them to choose from, whether they be sports or more artistic skills. If your child doesn't want to take part in an after school activity and you aren't able to collect them until much later than 4 p.m, they stay on campus and they're asked to use the school library, and lots of our children do that. They choose to do some extra learning, or they read, or they colour. They tend to enjoy that time being together socially in the library. We haven't had any issues that, and lots of our parents are working, so I understand that sometimes that's a necessity to do. Already done that question. Have you had children who have joined midway from a Malaysian system, and how do they adapt? Yes, we have. We've had quite a few actually. Because on our campus there are actually 3 schools. There's the international school, and then there's the national private primary and the national curriculum private secondary school. We often get students that will transfer from our national provision into our international provision. So one of the things that we've made ourselves very aware of is the curriculum gaps. What we've noticed is that some of the curriculum gaps lie within our maths curriculums. The difference between the Malaysian maths curriculum and the UK England national curriculum is the focus on reasoning and shape and geometry and those kinds of things. So we know when children come from a national system, sometimes they have those gaps, and my staff are really well aware of that and try to pick up those gaps straight away. Children drawing all the way through from Malaysian systems and Chinese schools, we find that when they join from the Malaysian system, we have very, very few issues, because the issues usually are around curriculum areas and gaps that we're very used to dealing with now, and those are plugged really quickly. Children who join from a Chinese school sometimes find it difficult with our imaginative and creative provision, and sometimes struggle to adapt to the group working that we sometimes do. But again, we're very used to that now, and the staff are very well trained in dealing with it, so they tend to adapt exceptionally well. Somebody is asking here about supporting foreign students to get visas. What we will do is provide you with all of the necessary paperwork that you need in a really timely manner, and the department that deals with that here in our registry department, they're very efficient at making sure you've got the reports that you would need, the attendance certificates that you would need, so that you can get the visa really easily. How have students been taught through online learning during the MCO? Yes, I realise many parents are thinking and wondering what will happen in a second wave. So if I explain to you how we're dealing with it, we took a phased approach to provision online in skips, and that has served us well, and what it has afforded us the luxury of doing is responding to parents' needs and adapting as we've gone along. So where we're at now, we use an online tool called Seesaw, which I think a lot of schools are using to set our daily activities. We've spent a lot of time training our staff in making sure that they are uploading recorded inputs in a way that suits young learners to be independent. One of the things that our parents have asked for us is if we can help their children to be more independent in their learning. And my parents are telling me, we did a recent survey, 75% of them were telling me that their children were learning all the way from year 1 up to year 6 independently, were accessing the activities well on their own. We do a combination of live and uploaded recorded activities because that's what parents have asked us for. We haven't stuck to a normal timetable delivered in live lessons because we don't think that that is practical or reasonable or gives the best learning outcomes in this situation. So we start our day with online learning. All of the kids come online at the same time with their teachers. They come on at 8:20, which is our normal start time. They do some registration activities for 20 minutes, and then they have some input on their main teaching activity for the day. And the teacher will also go through some of the recorded inputs that they have to do and go make sure that they know what they're doing when there's not a live input. The teachers will come offline at around about 9:40, although some of them will stay online if they need to because children are having difficulties right up to 10 a.m. And then they allow the children after that time to go off and do some activities. They come back online in the afternoon. There are 2 live sessions in the afternoon. There's the 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. session, which is run by the class teacher and is about troubleshooting from any inputs that they've had and submissions they've had online in between the morning and the afternoon sessions. Then we also do some group work within those sessions. So we have a 20-minute troubleshoot, then we have 2 separate 20 minutes now of group sessions where the students get more one-to-one time and interaction just like they would in the classroom with their teachers. Sometimes the teachers are doing little assessment activities, sometimes they're doing focused learning activities on objectives that are difficult to teach in any other way. They also then get what we're calling a surgery. It's a drop-in surgery of an hour for the specialist subjects, so their Bahasa or their Mandarin. And then the end of the day activities are a finish 15 minutes with their class teacher where they can mop up from the day and prepare them for anything for tomorrow, remind them what time they've got to be online, give them any notices. And we also have a 15-minute story time every day, and it's myself and the assistant head teachers that run those story times, and we've really enjoyed doing those and really enjoyed keeping engaged with the students over that time. We know that in the MCO period with online learning, we are not able to please everybody and everybody's unique situation. It's been exceptionally difficult for parents as well as teachers, with home situations, teachers home educating their own children at the same time as teaching online. So I think that what we've arrived at by our phased and responsive approach to what parents have been telling us is the balance of everything together and the best solution. So we're very happy, and we feel our parents are very happy with what we're currently offering. Hi Alicia, how do you deal with bullying and when children decide to form cliques and exclude a certain child? Yeah, bullying is always a difficult thing in schools to deal with, and I think that bullying in its first instance needs to be dealt in a really proactive manner in terms of educating our children about how they behave and what is normal and accepting behaviour. Our children know that inclusivity is part of our core values. We don't accept that you would exclude somebody from a game just because they weren't as good as somebody else or you didn't like them for some reason. That would not be accepted in our school, and our children would be able to tell you that. And lots of our parents will ask our children when they do tours with them, what about bullying in your school? And the children would say, oh, well, we don't get much of it, but if we do, Mrs. Tomlinson deals with it really severely because she sees it that we have gone against some of our core values of inclusivity, that we treat each other all with respect. And I hope the children themselves would be able to articulate to you, and I think that they would, about how actually it's all about being proactive in the first instance and establishing those core values, which, because we're small and I have the whole school of skips, I have primary year 1 to year 6 in a room together and do my regular assemblies, that those core values are really embedded in how we in how we behave. Now, saying that, kids are kids, they're young, and part of schooling is that it should be a safe place where they can make mistakes, and they do make mistakes. There are occasions where they might not behave in what we would consider would be an appropriate manner, and we deal with those situations as individual situations. So we would first of all make sure that we established, is this bullying, or is this actually just kids being a little bit unkind? Is it prolonged? Is it physical? Is it hurtful to the child? Is it groups? We would establish exactly what was happening. And then we deal with it quite harshly. And we're very open with parents where we've had instances of bullying. We've invited both sets of parents in to talk to us about it. And we've looked for how we can emotionally deal with the behaviours of these children. We can put it right for the victim, but we also can deal with the perpetrator in a way that helps them understand that their behaviour is unacceptable and will never happen again. And we've been very successful in that. In terms of cliques forming, my staff are really vigilant to this because it can be it's the start of something that can develop into something more. So we've got quite high staff ratios in terms of supervision on the yard and in the less structured times of the day, when the children are playing and in the cafeteria, and the staff are trained to look for it, to look for when it's happening, to look for when a child is sat on their own and actually there's a place at the other table but there's 4 kids there that just haven't included them. And so again, being proactive, they would raise this, they would talk to the kids about it. We also have these things in class called worry boxes, and we use the boxes so that the kids can post in there any of their concerns or anything that they've noticed. Because we have a saying in school that is no innocent bystanders. If you see somebody feeling alone, if you see somebody that is being left out, you have a duty as a member of our school to raise that with an adult in school and make sure that they're protected and cared for, because everybody deserves to be healthy, be safe, and be happy in our school. I'm just scrolling through any of the questions now that I have. Hi, Miss Ung. What happens to New Year 1 students who have enrolled if school does not reopen when the new term starts? They would just take part in our online provision. Whenever we're not open, we're doing online provision. So whether that be because we're closed because of haze, whether we're closed because of an MCO instruction from the government, we would always educate through our online platforms, which, as I said previously, is Seesaw, and that's our intention to do that. This is a really interesting question. I think it might have to actually be my last. How often are activities or teaching approaches reviewed to keep up with new developments and methods? That's really interesting. Yeah, we're doing this all the time. Just to give you a structure for how we're doing it, every single year, and we're in the process of doing it now because it's May and that's last time when we would do it, we review our curriculum. We look at how effective it's been, how it's met the needs of our students, what we need to adapt, what we need to move into a different age group, resource differently. What do we need to change the way we do? Do we teach this too much? Do we teach this too little? How do we need to do those tweaks? And we go through that process every single year because I think it's constant. It's really important to constantly review what you're doing and not just sit back and think that my curriculum will never be done in skips. We will never have a finished article. It will always be something that we're working on. Teaching approaches, yeah, we look at those all of the time. So we have quite an intensive CPD program that we run for our teaching staff. I'm a very hands-on and involved head teacher, so I'm constantly popping into classrooms. And what that does is it enables me to see the good practice that's going on, anything new that teachers are trying, and it can help me to help other teachers who I would like to try new things. We would never use our children as guinea pigs, so we're not just going to try something new because we think it might be worked. All of our new initiatives would be based on tried and tested research programs. We do a lot of work on research programs within our CPD. So, CPD changes to teaching approaches are managed through the CPD program that we put in place. And in terms of reviewing activities and the curriculum, that's done annually, at least annually. I think that has to be my last question because I've been online with you for an hour now. I hope I've been able to give you some information that will help you make an informed decision. I hope I might be able to see some of you in school in Skip. Thank you for listening to the live preview. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope to see you soon.